Very rough agenda for today. I'm going to give a really brief introduction to the link between human and animal violence, and I mean very brief. Then we will do some introductions of our wonderful panelists who are joining us today. We'll also do some really quick intros of our support team that is going to be helping behind the scenes with things. We got some members of the Red Rover team here. So we'll do some brief introductions of them as well. And then we're really just going to launch into a conversation with our wonderful friends from Ruthless Kindness in San Diego Humane Society. But again, really excited to have you all joining us here today. I do apologize in advance. I have a little bit of a cold. And so if you hear some sniffling or some coughing every once in a while, I do apologize for that. But I'm just super excited to be here with you all today. This is our first ever Red Rover Domestic Violence Awareness Month campaign. So it's the first time we've done that. I'll tell you a little bit more about that and some of the other discussions that you can join us for this month. But first, as I promised, let's just set the stage a little bit, okay? As I said, I'll give you a really brief interview or overview of Red Rover. I'll talk very briefly about what brings us here today, the link between human and animal violence. I shared this a little earlier, so a repeat for some folks who joined us at the top of the hour. We do encourage you, use the chat box to ask questions. You can also ask questions verbally. Everybody is coming in muted. If you do want to ask a question verbally, go ahead and raise your hand. Danielle will unmute you. We will have a specific portion for question and answers towards the end of our time together, but feel free to go ahead and ask those questions throughout our time. And just be patient with us. We do have a lot of folks joining us. I anticipate we might have a few questions, a few comments to get through. So just be patient. And then I also just want to center us by saying, let's assume the best intent of our colleagues who are joining us here today. They may ask questions or use terminology that may be new to you or may not be some of the terminology that you use. That's okay. Call them into that conversation, but let's also just assume that we're all coming here today with the best intent. All right. So, Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So October is dedicated to raising awareness around domestic violence. So you may be hearing a lot about some of your local domestic violence organizations doing this throughout the month of October. Purple is also the color of domestic violence, which is why you will see us at Red Rover doing a lot in purple. I am also all purpled up today. And so there you will see a lot of purple, and you'll see a lot around domestic violence, raising awareness, raising education, and taking action. For us, we are specifically going to talk about the link between human and animal violence. So we know that roughly 12 million adults are going to experience intimate partner violence every year. That's an average of 24 people per minute. We also know that 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men in the US will experience rape, physical violence, and or stalking by an intimate partner in their lifetime. So we know that a lot of folks are experiencing intimate partner violence, domestic violence, right? We also know that there's an estimated 10 million animals who die from abuse or cruelty every year in the United States, okay? Globally, at least one animal is abused every 60 seconds. So we know that we have a lot of human violence happening. We also know that we have a lot of animal violence happening. We generally refer to this as the link between human and animal violence. So this is an image adapted by the National Link Coalition. I really encourage you to check them out if you aren't aware of them. Generally, this means that when one of those things in the circles is happening, there is the possibility and the tendency for one of the other things to happen. So we have child abuse, elder abuse, animal abuse, and domestic violence. So for our conversation, we are, of course, really focusing on domestic violence and animal abuse here, okay? Foundational research, so going back to like the late 90s, early 2000s, showed us that 71% of survivors, predominantly women who had already entered shelter, had shared that their abuser had threatened, harmed, or had killed a family pet already. So by the time they came into shelter, 71% of the survivors shared this. Um, we also know if there's a really, really wonderful recent survey that came out, the URI PALS report. Tia, maybe you could drop a link in for that as well. So, a recent survey went out to about 2,500 survivors. And I believe they shared 89% of those survivors shared that their abuser had threatened, harmed, or killed a pet in order to keep them in the home. So we know that there's a very, very pervasive link between human and animal violence, which is why we at Red Rover spend a lot of time talking about providing technical support and the grant funding to help keep domestic violence survivors and their pets together. And we think that one of the most important pieces of that work is collaboration. So, very generally speaking, we are huge advocates of the human services community and the animal services community working together to provide holistic support for whole families. So, recognizing that pets are part of the family, which is why I'm super, super excited to have our panelists here who do come from that animal side of things. So they're coming from the animal services world. Before I have them introduce themselves, I do just want to run through our support staff real quick and have you all just introduce yourselves because they will also be the folks who can help you behind the scenes if you're having technical difficulties, if you want to ask a question, if you want some follow-up information. They're going to be your go-to folks. So I'm going to go Danielle first, and then Tia, and then Susie.
Hi, everyone, and welcome. Like Katie said, my name is Danielle Works, and I'm the Community Engagement Manager for Red Rover. If you have any technical issues today, any trouble at all with the Zoom call or any of your settings, just send me a private message in the chat and I will help you out.
Hi, folks. Thanks for joining. My name's Tia, and I am the Outreach Manager at Red Rover.
Hello, everybody. I'm Susie Robert. I'm the Vice President of Programs here at Red Rover, and it's really great to see you all on the call today. Welcome.
Thanks, team. All right. Now, the folks that we're really here to speak with and hear from. Stacey, I'm going to have you introduce yourself first. Maybe share with us who you are, where you're joining from, and maybe a fun fact that you might want to share with the group. I will say before you go, you are also a very longtime friend of Red Rover, and so super appreciate your support over the years. So take it away, Stacey.
Great. My name is Stacey Zeitlin, and I am currently Vice President for Community Impact at San Diego Humane Society in San Diego, California. I have been with San Diego Humane Society. I just celebrated my 23rd work anniversary last week-ish, the end of September. So lots and lots of changes here over the years. Just a brief little bit about who San Diego Humane Society. We were founded in 1880. If we are not the oldest nonprofit in San Diego County, we are one of the oldest nonprofits in San Diego County. We are an open admission animal welfare organization, and we have contracts for 14 of the cities in San Diego County, which is a pretty large county, and we have contracts with 14 of the cities. We have 5 campuses in San Diego County. So 5 locations where we serve community members, and each year we take care of about 40,000 domestic and wild animals. Fun fact, I have 2 kittens that I found. Now it's been 5 years ago, so I guess they're not really kittens anymore, but unfortunately I found a mama cat or an adult cat hit by a car, and then a few days later I found 3 kittens and wound up fostering the kittens and keeping 2 of them. And that's, I guess, it's a sad fact, but it's a great fact that now I have my lovely kittens. So that's me.
Yeah. And they're always going to be kittens, Stacey.
I was just having that conversation with somebody this morning that they're 5 years old and they're kittens. So
yeah, still kittens. I love it. Thanks, Stacey. All right, Sarah, over to you.
Hi, everybody. I am Sarah Reidenbach, and I'm really excited that you're doing this first October DV Awareness Month. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you, Red Rover, as always. So I'm a veterinarian, and I'm also a co-founder and CEO of nonprofit Ruthless Kindness. We are in Northern California. And before Ruthless Kindness, I was a shelter veterinarian for my entire career and did a little bit of animal disaster response work. Ruthless Kindness, our nonprofit, is essentially designed to make sure that survivors are not excluded from services just because they have and love a pet. So we are supporting multiple victim service agencies and domestic violence agencies, shelters, safe houses, etc., through being on call for any of their pet needs. So we have a mobile unit, we do mobile veterinary care, we do pet fostering, pet boarding, pet supplies, pet food, helping to get animals into protective orders, that kind of thing. That's our job. I'm also a DV survivor. And so this is heart work on many levels for me. Fun fact would be, I have a soulmate dog named Buck, and he's a big Shepherd Pyrenees thing out of Fresno. And he is named after the movie Call of the Wild, the one with Harrison Ford, because he looks just like that dog.
I love it. Sarah, thank you. Thank you so much for joining and for sharing. I know this work is incredibly important to you on many different levels as you just shared. I also have to just say you have pigs at your home as well, don't you?
Yes, we currently have 4 pigs on site that came through supporting a survivor who was trying to access a safe house that, not surprisingly, wasn't able to accommodate pigs. But she only had 48 hours to accept the bed in the safe house. So through an incredible collaboration, we were able to go and pick up her pigs and rehome most of them, but we still have 4.
I love it. I love it. And part of the reason why I wanted to kind of call that out is, both of these organizations, San Diego Humane Society and Ruthless Kindness, do a lot in their local communities to support local human services organizations in this idea of becoming pet friendly, right? And so when I just want to kind of call out a definition for us, when we say pet friendly, we don't mean service animals. We don't mean emotional support animals. Of course, we are huge fans of making sure everybody is safe. But when we say, hey, let's make sure we're supporting the pets of domestic violence survivors, we're talking about companion animals and pets and emotional support animals and service animals. And we aren't just talking dogs and cats, right? As Sarah just said, we are talking about pigs and lizards and birds and snakes and goats and horses and cows. Don't worry, human services folks, we are not advocating that you take those animals into your facilities. That is the power of partnership. That is one of the most important pieces of creating a partnership. And so I just want to preface us with that as we get started with this conversation. So we are going to have a conversation. Stacey has somebody else who has just joined us. I'm super excited. I can see an ear. Oh my goodness. I love it. I love it. That's amazing.
Yes,
Stacey,
he
who is
decided
this?
right now was the time to start barking at the people working right outside my office. So we'll see how this goes. This is my brother Teddy while my mom is in the hospital. Unfortunately, Teddy is hanging out with me today. So yes.
I love it. I love it. Well, welcome, Teddy. I think this is probably just about the best group ever to have Teddy join us. So super, super excited Teddy is here as well. Okay, so what we're going to do, the 3 of us are going to have some conversation. I've got some questions I'm going to ask them, but we're also going to invite you all to ask questions. So if you have a question, drop it into the chat. You can also ask it verbally if you would rather. Just raise your hand, and then Danielle will help facilitate unmuting you so that you can ask verbally. And Danielle, I'm gonna make you stop us should there be questions that come up that you want to ask right now, or we'll ask them as we get to the question and answer session a little later on. So that is your role for today. So thank you, Danielle. So first question, Stacey. As an animal service welfare organization, why is recognizing the link between human and animal violence important to you and your organization?
Well, yeah, that's a great question because obviously as an animal welfare organization, we want animals to be safe, and that's a big part of the link. But we also want safe communities. And the link is such it's an early warning, a red flag that things are happening. So a lot of times, maybe a vet may notice something, or a shelter, an animal may come in to a shelter and they may have some questions. And that is a really good first, early warning sign that something might be going on. And as I mentioned, we want safe communities. So noticing and being aware of the link, and being aware that violence to animals is happening, and potentially violence to people is happening, is so important, because that allows us to potentially break the cycles of violence. It allows for cross-reporting, collaboration with other groups. It allows us to have a more holistic approach where we can potentially get others involved, get ourselves involved, get others involved to prevent further harm to animals and people. Also, it's important to be aware of the link, and when people are coming and potentially wanting to get help, helping survivors escape a situation. As you mentioned in your overview about Domestic Violence Awareness Month and the things that you're doing, animals are often used in unsafe and dangerous situations. And survivors often won't leave. They'll stay in an unsafe situation when animals are not included, or they don't have options for their pets. So it's so important to be aware of all of that, all the interplay, be noticing, hey, this animal looks like maybe there's been some abuse. Who else is in the home? Who else might be impacted? What other resources might be needed? So that we can, again, try and break that cycle of violence and get help to all that needed, and provide safe communities for the communities that we're involved in. So really, it is not just, we feel really that it's not just about protecting the animals, but protecting families and communities. And, at the end of the day, we do care about the animals, and we need the community members and their families to be safe, to be able to help take care of them. So it is all interconnected. And as animal welfare organizations, we have to be paying attention to all of the aspects, and care about all of those aspects.
I love it. Yeah, that's great. I will often say it. We can't help pets if we don't help people, and we can't help people if we don't help
Absolutely.
pets, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Sarah, a little bit of the same question to you, coming from the veterinarian side. So that's your background. So why is this work important to you?
So many reasons, but I think that from the veterinary perspective specifically, we tend to be myopic. We tend to be really focused on the animal that is on the table in front of us, and what we need to do to diagnose and treat this individual animal. And at the end of the day, we do our job a lot better when we remember to zoom out and look at the big picture, because like you both just said, animals live in context of people, right? Animals are connected to people. And so suffering animals are linked to suffering people. Forgotten animals are linked to forgotten people. And all of those vulnerabilities at the end of the day are linked. And really, this is why Ruthless Kindness was founded, was because while I could work all day, every day, and exhaust myself trying to help that one animal in front of me, I wasn't getting in front of it because I wasn't looking at the causes. I wasn't looking at sort of the upstream opportunities even in the community. And so I think at the end of the day, for me, the reason why the link is so important is because it helps me do my job better. If my job is to reduce suffering for animals and people, I can do that better if I understand the link, if I know that if I see an abused animal, there's very likely to be abused people in that home, if I know that communicating with my, human service partners is going to help me get the information that I need to protect animals, if I know that victims are going to choose to stay with their animals in abusive situations rather than leave if we don't accommodate their pets. So if I want to reduce suffering for animals and people understanding the link, understanding all the data, understanding what survivors are saying is important to them, it just helps us do our job better as far as preventing suffering, but also on the healing side, right? I mean, we're talking about trauma, we're talking about health, and people and animals make each other's health and healing so much better. So as far as risks and as far as benefits, it helps us do a better job serving our community.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. I love that both of you are, really touching on that idea of people love their pets. They make choices a lot of times based on their pets, their family members. And I loved, that idea, Sarah, of I can do my job better if I know what is happening outside of this particular moment, like outside of this exam room, whether that exam room is happening in the back of Clifford, the big red wagon, or in the four walls, right? And I really do. You both know me well enough that I get really excited about that idea of creating safer communities where people and pets can thrive and they can be safe and they can be together. Slightly, sort of a question, I think, to build off of this. Uh, I think we hear a lot about this idea of keeping people and pets together, right? I think especially a lot of animal welfare, animal well-being organizations have kind of started to approach that and embrace that idea of the importance of keeping people and their pets together. San Diego Humane Society, Ruthless Kindness, you have been engaged, I think, in this conversation for a really long time, whether as individual organizations or as people. This is not a new idea for you all to keep people and their pets together. Why is it important to you, Stacey?
Well, I mean, all that we were just talking about, I mean, pets are part of our families. They provide so much support and love. And I think the animal welfare organizations have started realizing, I mean, we always kept animals together, like we wanted animals and people together, but I think we've started having a turn recently. I mean, some of the areas of just seeing inequities in communities and realizing that everybody deserves that. Not only the people who are well off, or not only the people who can afford that, but everybody deserves that at every time of their lives. So, people should be able to have animals in their lives if they want, at all times of their lives, even during crisis. And not even especially during crisis, really is the more important part of that. I mean, it's good. Keeping people and their pets when there is a crisis situation is so important for the person. It is, they provide emotional support and, unconditional love for the person who's going through a very traumatic situation. They provide purpose and motivation, a reason, like, maybe that is the reason. Wanting to get out to save your pet could be the reason of getting out and saving yourself as well. And maybe the motivation is about your pet more so than even taking care of yourself. And then while, when out of that dangerous situation, providing the purpose and motivation to go on too, and to continue on. And I'm going to do this for, my pet. Steering off of domestic violence situations for a second, we see that a lot with people who are in treatment programs as well. The animal's the reason they get up every day, and that they want to go through treatment. They want to be better for their animal. A sense of responsibility, consistency, normalcy, just, having routines and having that sense of order. Obviously health benefits and a connection to others. I mean, I'm dog sitting for my Teddy, who made himself noticeable earlier, and, out walking around this morning. I do the same walk every night and very rarely ever connect with people. And last night while I was doing it with Teddy, somebody's like, oh, I have a Yorkie too. Or, so it's a connection with other people. So there's so many reasons, that it's important for people to have their pets around. And as I mentioned earlier, shelters are starting to get there and support families in keeping those bonds together. And, offering resources to your community. And that's something we do for all the time, not even just around domestic violence, but, behavior and training resources, classes, videos, so people can keep pets, if they're struggling with a behavior issue, what resources are out there for them. Pantries so that they can have food in case they're needing it, so that they can keep their pets. Access to vet services. So, reducing some of the barriers so that you can keep your pets with you at all times. Case management, talking through options with people and, where they can go for services, what resources are out there, temporary boarding, humane euthanasia services. All of these things are just designed, the programs that shelters are starting to do more of, designed to keep people and pets together, because we know it's so important to keep people and pets together for the people, for the pets, selfishly, even for the shelters, to keep animals out of shelters. I mean, that's a very selfish reason, but like, we would much rather the people and animals be together than the animals in our shelters. So those are all just, there's a lot of reasons to want to keep pets and people together.
We could talk probably 3 more hours about what's
Yes.
important. Yeah. No, and I think, you say it's a selfish reason, but I wholeheartedly believe it's a really important reason. Let's keep the adoptable spaces on your floor for animals who need to be adopted out, not the
who
ones
truly
that
need
already
help,
have.
and like the ones who have homes, let's keep them there. And if somebody's struggling just a little bit, let's get them the access to, flea meds or fix a fence or whatever reason to keep them home.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah. Thanks, Stacey.
Sure.
Sarah, I've got another question for you, unless there's just something you wanted to tag on to any of that.
I mean, agree with everything, so I don't need to add anything.
Yeah, ditto, right? I did just want to call out real quick. I love, Stacey, that you brought up the human animal bond and what it gives us. I've lived in my neighborhood for now 8 years. It took me 4 years to know the people's names, but I knew the dogs' names from like day one.
Yep.
And we connected over it. Human Animal Bond Research Institute, HABRI, released a wonderful report. I think it was their spring policy forum report from 2024. And it talked about pets as social connectors, as giving us a purpose and that reason sometimes that we might just really need to do the things in life to keep us healthy and safe. So I love that you brought that up. Sarah, my question for you, and you kind of touched on it a little bit earlier. Can you share a little bit about the One Health perspective? Because I think we're hearing a little bit more about it now. And, share maybe why it's important, generally speaking, but maybe also why it's important to you and your work.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of you probably already know about One Health, but One Health is essentially a field of research and study that emphasizes the interconnectedness of human health, animal health, and environmental health. And, the core principle is that human health doesn't happen in isolation, which is kind of obvious. We can't be healthy if our air is unclean, and we can't be healthy if animals are having outbreaks that are zoonotic diseases and can affect us. And so, this concept has been around for a long time, that everything is interconnected, and health does not exist in isolation. So I think when we apply it to human violence and animal violence, the most important thing to remember is that violence doesn't occur in isolation. When we are talking about a specific victim, we know that a large proportion of the time there are children in the home. There are other family members who might be affected. There are animals who might be affected. So violence doesn't occur in isolation. It would really be how One Health applies to this in my mind. And what's really important about that is it's extremely data backed, right? I mean, we know, I think you said earlier, Katie, 71% of victims say that their animals were harmed, killed, threatened. We know about half of survivors won't leave an abusive situation if they can't bring their pets. We know, depending on which study you're reading, but it's about 98% of people say that their pets are actual family members to them. So I think it really comes down to believing this data that backs up what survivors are already telling us, which is that they want to protect themselves, but maybe even more, they want to protect those that they love. They're not going to leave, they're not going to engage in services if that means that their kids can't also be safe and their pets can't also be safe. So it informs our services, and there's a lot of this One Health data that backs that up. And most importantly, One Health emphasizes the different specialties, right? Like nobody expects for a DV advocate to be an expert in veterinary medicine. Nobody expects a veterinarian to be an expert in domestic violence. But when we work together and when we learn about what each other are experts in, then we kind of weave this much better safety net, and we're able to catch and serve a lot more survivors, animals, children, all of them, survivors and those that they care about protecting.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. The URI PALS report that I mentioned a little bit earlier, it surveyed 2,500 survivors who weren't necessarily in shelter, but they were contacting the National Domestic Violence Hotline. So I think just a very wide range of experiences related to domestic violence. 2,500 survivors, 97% of those survivors said the ability to keep my pet with me factors into my decision to leave. 97%. And additionally, 91% of those survivors said my pet is an important part of my healing process. They help me heal and survive. And so you're right. I think we have to follow that data. Data's telling us this, survivors are telling us this. And it was the most beautiful segue into my next question, Sarah. First, I will recognize this work is hard, especially for my human services folks. I come from the human services world before RedRover. I know it's hard. I totally get it. We recognize and know that what you do on a daily basis is already hard work. You already have a lot of people coming in. I will go out on a limb and say that I think this work happens effectively and can happen effectively for a long time when we collaborate and work together. I think it's one of the most important pieces of this work is to collaborate. So Stacey, how important is collaboration to San Diego Humane Society in this kind of work that you
No,
are?
it's critical. I mean, Sarah was mentioning experts are experts, and you can't expect everybody, and we shouldn't expect everybody to be experts. And there's in others fields, and there's no reason to. I mean, San Diego County has over 3 million people. San Diego Humane Society cannot act alone in supporting those people with their pets. And the more that other people and other groups are involved and aware and helping, and the more we can point to others, the better, and the more we're going to be able to help. So most of the organizations involved are nonprofits a lot of the time. We have limited resources, we have limited budget. So there's really no way, between limited resources, limited knowledge, you can't do it all. So learning from each other is critical. I think I saw somebody on our on the list of attendees from Rancho Coastal Humane Society, and they're a big partner of ours in the community. They have an amazing animal safe house program that we've learned a lot from. We refer to regularly. We can't take care of all of the animals. They can't take care of all the animals. Not looking at each other as competitors or looking at them as collaborators and partners is critical. Another example, Father Joe's Villages, which is a huge organization here, a shelter and resource provider for those experiencing homelessness. We have done things with them to do staff training. So we go and teach their staff about working with animals and looking for things when they have animals on site at their shelters, because they're pet friendly, yay. And we do that. And they have had staff come and talked with our staff about poverty and homelessness and bringing awareness to our frontline staff. So like great collaboration there. Legal Aid Society, we've done ESA handouts. Like we can't create all of that. They can do that. So just, it's so, I mean, it's critical to not be replicating services, to learning what's in your community and who you can refer to and start the conversations. One other like quick, I mentioned I have Teddy because his mom is in the hospital. That hospital has reached out to us just over the summer and wants to set up kennels at the hospital in a space to help people when they're coming to the emergency room. Because a lot of this location of this hospital, there are a lot of people experiencing homelessness who have animals with them. And so, you know, amazing. They reached out to us. We didn't reach out to them. They reached out to us and said, we'd like to learn from you. We'd like to explore this. You have to be working with others. And if you're not, yeah. Yeah.
I love that. What an exciting update too in San Diego.
Yeah, I know. It was kind of fun. And then, yeah.
I love it. Well, you're definitely going to have to keep us posted.
Yeah, it's exciting. They're coming, I think, next week to come and talk with us and look at some of our temporary housing spaces. So
I love it. Very cool. Very cool. Thanks, Stacey.
sure.
Sarah, thoughts from you?
As I was just listening to you talk, Stacey, I was thinking about collaborating and wanting to have a healthy and safe community as like a school group project. I have a teenager who's working on a group project right now. Like the health and safety of a community is a group project. Nobody can do it by themselves. Government can't do it by themselves. Law enforcement can't do it by themselves. And so it is a group project, whether we want it to be or not. And you never want to be that person who doesn't do their portion. And you also would never want to be the person who has to try to do it all by yourself. It just doesn't make any sense, right? And so just listening to you talk and thinking about collaboration from that angle, as far as, you know, we each have our piece and that gets amplified and improved upon by connecting with who else is completing the whole project. I think, you know, every case that we work on, this week, for example, we had a client who had reached out to a local Humane Society because she was living in a car with her puppy. And the puppy, being young and energetic, was not doing well living in a car. The Humane Society wasn't able to assist, but knowing us, they called us. So like first collaboration from Humane Society to us, we find out that she is in her car because of domestic violence. We're asking if she's being supported in any way, and she is not yet. So we're able to get her connected with a family justice center and with law enforcement and with victim services. And then they're figuring out what's going on with the child who's also living in the car, and they pulled in those partners. So I think it would just be delusional to think that we could do right by animals, survivors, the community at large, all of it, without collaboration. I keep talking about weaving a safety net. I think this is how we do it, is by, you know, being good group project partners and doing our part well, but also reaching out and asking for help and sharing resources and, you know, making it all easier and more efficient and supporting each other.
Yeah. These are big, complex problems that require, I'm not going to say big responses, but they require, I think, coordinated responses. And they require us, to what you all have said, they require us to work together and to not take on all of the problem, right? We don't need to, and we shouldn't take it all on. You know, I think we create more sustainable communities and solutions when we work together. So I love that. I know there are a couple of questions. One question was a perfect setup for another question I was going to ask you both. So I'm going to pause on that one. Danielle, has there been any other questions that have come in that I might have missed?
We currently have 3 pending questions in the chat.
Okay. I'm going to take on the one around PTSD in a couple of minutes, right? So like pet behavior, we'll definitely talk about that one in a minute. What are the other 2 questions, Danielle?
Yeah, we have a question from Kyra. She says, I really appreciate the emphasis on partnerships and collaboration and how that strengthens communities. I work for a DV agency that accepts dogs at our shelter, but we are still growing our connections to boarding facilities and other pet-related partner agencies. What tips do you have to build strong relationships, particularly with boarding businesses?
Yeah, boarding folks. That's just to give a quick little background piece on Red Rover. So we have two different grant opportunities. One is our Safe Escape grant program, where we help cover the cost of boarding while a pet is in while a survivor is in shelter. And then, of course, we have our safe housing programs where we give a larger sum of money for an organization to create a pet housing program. So, all that's to say, boarding tends to be like a really, really important part of this process, or one of the tools that I think communities can utilize. Thoughts from either both of you on the boarding piece? I know neither of you represent boarding facilities, but if you have some thoughts on that question, what do you think?
We use boarding facilities a lot. So we've had to do that. We've had to navigate those relationships, and it's exactly that. It's just relationships. It all comes down to relationships. And I think that, well, the way we did it was we cast a wide net, introducing ourselves, trying to start relationships. Found out very quickly that there were lots of boarding facilities who just kind of didn't understand what we were trying to do or weren't interested in, altruistic angles to their work, and that's fine. But there were a few who kind of resonated with it, and we always offer to give something in return, right? So our boarding facilities, we do eventually enter into MOUs with them. We do ask for discounts, but we also offer a lot of thanks and advertising and praise and that kind of thing. We bring their staff lunch and we just tell them how wonderful they are 80 times a day. And I think it just comes down to relationships, is first finding somebody that connects with your mission, which can happen through an email blast, through a community presentation, through, just reaching out to them and asking, this is what we do. Are you interested in learning more? Can I bring you lunch? And then just building relationships.
Partnerships are relationships, and relationships are work, y'all. Don't ever let anybody tell you that a partnership is not work, because it is.
Yeah, and I think it's important to remember, I mean, boarding facilities are businesses that like have to support themselves too. And so I think for some of them it is hard, because if I'm going to, offer discounted or free space,
Yeah.
like that it hits me. So I think it like you said, Sarah, casting a really wide net is going to be critical to find the ones who resonate with, who resonate with the cause. And you're not going to be able to get everybody, and that's just part of it, unfortunately, but you'll get some. And then to be able to support them and do what you can to then maybe, oh, wait, that's the boarding facility that did that. I want to go to them instead of this other place. So,
yeah. And I would just add, this work can take time. This work of engaging others in the conversation and getting them on board as partners can really, really take some time. And it's okay, just because it's your priority right now doesn't mean it's their priority right now. And that's all right. I really, really encourage folks just to be patiently persistent. I've been that way with many, many folks over the years. And okay, your answer is no right now, but I'll touch back with you. I'll give it some time, and I'll come back around to you. Sometimes folks just need to hear the message a few times before it really resonates with them. But yeah, it can definitely take some time.
Well, and remember that this is a new message, right? Like, this is sort of, maybe not to us, but this field of pets and people and the link between violence and all of that, it's an old issue, but it's a new forefront of work, right? And so as you're connecting with people, there is a little bit of like awareness, education, and an introduction to an issue that you're trying to address. And that's kind of awesome, because we are pushing forward the edge of doing good work in the community.
Absolutely. Yeah. And just to build on it, Carla, just because I see your note in there, I started at RedRover in 2016. And I was calling and reaching out to domestic violence organizations, and I got many, many no's. I got many no callbacks, no emails back. I got many folks telling me, to my face, I deal with people, I don't deal with animals. And I said, that's fine. Absolutely. I hear you. This is really hard work. I'm still going to compassionately hound you, pun intended. And I'm going to do it very nicely. And I'm just going to come back around. And yeah, no's can be
Just think
hard.
of just think of all that education you provided, all those years of education, Katie.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. So I think my number one message, don't get too down about hearing that no. It's okay. Yeah. All right. Danielle, I think you had another question that came through.
We do, and we still have some more coming in.
Awesome.
I think this is a great question for Sarah from
Okay.
Christine. Veterinarians say that they do not learn about looking for abuse in school and do not know where to report, and some fear involvement due to close relationships with clients. How do you overcome this and get involvement?
Great question. Huge issue.
Yeah.
Well, I've been out of vet school for a while, but when I was there, we were absolutely not trained on looking for abuse. My first abuse case was my own just awakening as far as looking at an animal in front of me. It was some kittens who came in with really obvious trauma, and the family would keep adopting kittens and the same trauma would keep happening. And I had no idea how to handle it. I had to just reach out to people and try to find the answer because you're right, we absolutely aren't trained on that at all. So I think it is, but that's veterinary medicine too. Like when you're in vet school, you're drinking information through a fire hose. You can't possibly learn everything that you need to learn about this field in 4 years. It's totally impossible. So like with many diseases and like with any other aspect of the profession, you have to take responsibility for learning it. And this is where we need to have CE, and this is where we need to have outreach to our veterinary colleagues because it might not be on their radar. It probably isn't. So the reporting requirements, they do vary from state to state. In California, we are mandated reporters for child abuse. As far as like the concern about your closeness with your clients, that's a real issue, and you always have to weigh, cost versus benefit. It is a moral responsibility, it is a legal responsibility, and I think that you can ask to make reports anonymous. Sometimes it's not as effective, but you can make an anonymous report. You can express your concern. It's not always going to get back to the client that it came from you, but I think the main thing I hear from veterinarians is, well, I'm not sure. There's some weird trauma, but how do I know? I didn't see it happen. And that's not what reports are. Reports are something is off. I suspect it's not your job to figure it out for sure. It is your job to report that something isn't right, and that's it. And then leave it in the hands of the authorities. Because even if you're not sure, you might call and they might have 15 other calls about that family, and your call is a very important addition. So I encourage veterinarians to call. I encourage them to do the right thing. We have to break up with clients all the time for lots of different reasons. So if you suspect, I think you should call.
And I think it's becoming, I'm not a vet, so I have no idea what they're teaching in vet school, but I know, with the whole movement of veterinary social workers, I think it's becoming more, maybe not that they're how to investigate trauma or know that that's from an injury, but I think it is becoming at least a little bit more, more awareness of it, and the link is getting out there more. So hopefully it can just continue to grow.
Yeah, I hope so. I think that part of it is considered very progressive, right? Veterinary medicine has its roots in animal agriculture, which is by itself kind of a violent thing. And a lot of like violent things are allowed to happen to animals. And so the veterinary profession is actually pretty old school when it comes to violence. And veterinary social work, and looking into these things is progressive. And I'm seeing it more at some schools than the like heavy ag schools, but it is coming. I think you're right. It's starting.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tia and I are actually going to be giving a talk to students, to college students, veterinary, social work, lots of different students around this issue. So I think you're right, Sarah. It's growing. It's a little slow moving. You know, I come from human services world, and so I was a child. I was a mandated reporter for child abuse, suspected child abuse. And I hear you. It is hard. It is, it is a hard decision to make, but it is, it's a moral one. And so something to think of for our animal services folks. Consider reaching out to your human services folks and getting some training and just a conversation around how to make that report. It is not comfortable, for sure. I've sometimes made it with the parent who I suspected of child abuse. Within very, very particular circumstances. But your human services folks might be able to just provide some training and support around that. Because I know it's definitely, it's a hard process. It's a hard decision to make and a hard call to make for sure.
The other one thought I just wanted to say is that don't assume that they don't want it reported, right? Like you might be afraid of conflict and, oh gosh, I'm going to piss somebody off. But like maybe there's somebody or multiple people in that home who really would love if somebody would notice. So just, I think you have to steer away from assumptions and try to stay objective as far as this is what I'm seeing. This is what I can report. I don't know the rest of the story and that's not my job.
Such a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Thanks, Sarah. I do want to, I want to switch back a little bit to one of the other questions that came in around PTSD. So 76% of those 2,500 survivors also shared that they started noticing changes in their pet's behavior. So pretty noticeable changes. So pets are going to be experiencing some trauma. They're going to be reacting to what they're witnessing. They may be, experiencing and displaying some of their own PTSD related behaviors. So for the question for both of you, thoughts around how you support pets who are struggling, who maybe have some of those behaviors that are a little challenging, and what might some of those behaviors look like? Sarah, you want to go first? You're like over there on my right side, so I'm going to pick on right side first. Yeah.
It's very real. And animals are just like us. They respond to trauma in very different ways.
Yeah.
And some will seem fine and some won't seem fine, and there'll be everything in between. However, I think generally animals handle stress much better than we do. They process trauma better than we do. There's a very cool book called Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers, which I encourage people to read. It's about how animals process stress differently than they do. So it's not the same as what happens with us, but it's still very much there. So what I would say is it is important to notice these behaviors. It's important to support them, especially if you're dealing with trying to access housing or be in a shelter, right? Problematic animal behaviors can lead to eviction and people getting bit. So it's not something to ignore. And of course, we don't want our animals suffering. I think the behaviors you're likely to see are the most common one I hear anecdotally from clients is that the animal is guarding the client, biting, growling at people who approach the client, a lot of going under the bed and not wanting to come out. So isolating, hiding, aggressive behavior, not eating. Those would be big ones. My first advice is tincture of time. Give them a minute. Let them have some time to decompress. Give them a safe space. It's hard when there's not a lot of stability, but if you can, if there's a bathroom, if there is a small space, if there is a crate, if there's a way that you can offer some calm, comfort, stability, I think that that's really the number one thing. But then call in help if you need it. You might need to talk to a behaviorist. You might need to talk to a vet. That help exists. Those experts exist.
Yeah, I think striving to keep like the normalcy or the calmness or keeping them with their family, that getting them out of the situation, but still with their ones who they care about is critical if you can do that. If the animals are needing to be rehomed, I mean, looking to see if there are family or friends or something that is a little bit familiar who is aware of the situation. And we working on trauma informed for people, looking for fear-free care and fear-free techniques with the animals as well, going slow, all the things that Sarah was mentioning, providing time, going slow. And then, we have a number of behavior and training resources, but a lot of other animal welfare organizations do as well. So looking at some of the training materials and finding out what's out there and just supporting that positive reinforcement, using only positive training.
That's so important. I just have to emphasize that you said that if you're seeing problematic behaviors and you come in with negative reinforcement training, like punishment-based training, that will make it worse.
Yes.
Don't do it.
100%.
It doesn't work, and also it will make things worse.
Yeah. And wonderful points. Yes, the book I believe Sarah mentioned was Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. I love that. Wouldn't it be great not that I have ulcers, but not to worry about getting ulcers?
Well, and I was thinking, like, as you were saying that, like they're a prey animal, so they're they're getting attacked all the time or have to be aware all the time. So that's an interesting concept.
Yeah. And you will also have animals that come in who are not, displaying, those PTSD behaviors. But good change is hard. I just want to remind folks of that. Like, good change is hard for people and for animals. And so I just want to echo, the positive spaces and the positive environment as much as you can, and time. Sometimes this work can also just take time, right? For people to find that healing and figure out what their next steps are going to be for themselves, right? Danielle, I'm assuming, do you have some more questions for us? Because I just want to do a quick time check.
I do. We do have a couple more.
Okay, so how about this? I have a couple of slides that I just want to make sure that I show. Sarah and Stacey, if you have time, and it's a big if, don't feel the pressure to stick around. If you want to stick around for a few minutes, maybe we'll try and take on maybe a couple more questions at the top of the hour. Okay, cool. All right, so let's do it. I'm going to just share really quickly. If you haven't checked out our DVAM page, please do so. You can scan the QR code or you can go to redrover.org/DVAM. So you can check out the rest of the conversations and presentations that we have coming up. Next week, our friends from Safe Voices, a domestic violence shelter in Maine, is going to share about their experience. So they are a pet inclusive organization. They started small. And so I think it's a wonderful, wonderful story to be able to see how they created small and have really grown to become not just a pet friendly shelter, but a pet inclusive organization. If you know students who would be interested, have them join us on October the 24th. That is the one that I mentioned earlier. Tia and I are going to be talking about from classroom to community. And then finally, our last session for Domestic Violence Awareness Month is going to be on October 29th. And we're actually going to hear from a survivor and advocate. And she's going to be sharing her story of how she helped make pet-friendly domestic violence shelter happen in her community. Last but not least, if you need some support, I mentioned it earlier. We know this work can be hard. In collaboration with Greater Good Charities, we created the Don't Forget the Pets Project. It is just a website chock full of information and resources, past webinars, presentations. We do training workshops in person for free throughout the US. We also have an online module that you can now take. As I mentioned, we have guest presentations. Sarah actually came and did a guest presentation for us. Lauren from San Diego Humane Society, who works with Stacey, also did a guest presentation for us. So you can see those recordings. And you can get free one-on-one technical assistance and support from Danielle and the team via the coaching program. So lots of wonderful information on that website. It is all free. I'm going to skip through that and I'm going to stop sharing because it's the top of the hour. And so I know some folks might need to hop off. But Maybe we'll spend another 5 minutes or so answering maybe another just couple of questions, Danielle. And if you do have to drop off, folks, I just want to say thank you for joining us for our session today. Really appreciated having you here. And yeah, let's see, Danielle, what other questions do you have?
Yeah, we'll see how much time we have, but this one might be a good one to kind of close us out. But this, I believe, is a question about sort of crisis fostering. So for pets that are experiencing crisis with their owner that are moved into a foster situation, the question is from Suzanne. In foster situations, what do you do to make sure that a foster home is not bringing communicable illnesses into their home? How do you ensure that pets are free from illnesses, vaccinated, etc.?
It's a great question.
Great question. Yeah, I can take that because we do that, and I'm a vet. First thing is to remember that almost all of these animals are owned. So it's very different than taking in a bunch of animals from unknown exposures and adding them to an animal shelter where they could take a high risk situation and transfer that high risk exposure to a whole shelter. So that's not what we're dealing with here. What we're dealing with here is most likely an owned animal who has received some level of care, who has lived with a human who would notice if that animal's ill. And then you're going into a home with, maybe one or two other animals. So it's a much, much lower risk situation. So we don't have to, believe me, I was a shelter vet, so I'm very outbreak paranoid, but in this situation, it is low risk, which is fantastic. So we're starting from that. And then from there, it's just setting up your processes and your protocols. So for us, we do a vet exam on every animal before they go into foster. We have our required vaccines before they go into foster. They get flea prevention before they go into foster. So we kind of have our baseline process, standard protocols. I'm a vet, so I can do it myself, but other organizations that don't have a vet on staff, they contract with a vet and animals go see the vet before they go into foster. So you can set up that pre-entry system, make sure vaccines are up to date. And then we train our fosters just as far as what to look for. If there's any reason we think the animal needs to be isolated from other animals, we'll talk that through with them. But usually there's different ways to set up your protocols as far as more or less conservative, more or less careful, but it's usually pretty low risk. So kind of a basic entry intake and vaccinations, usually good enough.
Yeah. Thanks, Sarah.
Yeah, I don't really think I have anything to add on that because we have a safety net foster program, but the animal is coming into us initially, gets the exam, gets any of the treatment. So same thing. And then, you always can encourage the fosters to keep them separate too, at least initially, if need be. So yeah, nothing really to add.
I'm seeing that somebody just made a comment about where they're working that a lot of animals aren't vaccinated. And of course, this is going to be case by case as far as assessing your risk and how you want to do it. And I think that, if you're bringing in animals from an area where there are really a lot of animals out in the community, remember, if most animals are vaccinated, the animals in the community are pretty much protected, right? But if you're bringing in animals from an area where most of the animals are not vaccinated, and you are seeing a lot of infectious disease, such as parvovirus or, very serious infectious disease, then maybe for your protocols, you want to set up, sort of a casual quarantine. You could suggest that fosters keep animals in a separate room for the first week. Mm-hmm. And train them what symptoms to look for. You can absolutely still do it. You could just put in a little more careful protocols and very doable.
That's great feedback. Thanks, Sarah. Yeah. Danielle, another question? Maybe we'll try one more.
Yeah, let's do one more question from Jennifer. And we talked about this a little bit earlier in relation to boarding facilities, but I think this is just a more general question about partnerships. How do we build partnerships? So the question is, I need help with creating partnerships within my community. Do you guys have any suggestions?
Oh, that's a good one.
Just start asking. Just get, we did talk about that. Keep asking, keep connecting, keep, a lot of places you'll find that one person who cares about animals, that's your in. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm an introvert. I am not a natural relationship builder or collaborator at all. And yet I'm able to understand how important relationships are. So like, when you're the shy kid in school, but you find the one friend that's the extrovert, and then you piggyback on them to make you all your other friends, like you find those people, you find the connectors and let them make introduction. I mean, like Katie Campbell, let's be honest, you're like the ultimate connector and like the friendliest person in the world. So I don't know how many people you've introduced us to, but it's a lot, right? And now I get to know Stacey, and so I think that you have to put yourself out there. You have to ask for a meeting, you have to ask for lunch, you have to go to outreach events. But then
actually, you saying outreach events is a great one too. I mean, just start going to the places, depending on what you're wanting. Start going to those meetings. Start going, even if you're the animal services person and you're going to domestic violence meetings, or you're going to health meetings, or you're going to resource fairs, or you're going to your city's homeless court. Like, start going to the places where the people are and being there.
Yeah, absolutely.
It'll happen naturally.
Yeah, I love it. Sarah, I'm also an introvert.
I don't believe it.
An extroverted introvert, some might say. No, it's, and Jennifer, I hear you. 400 no's, and you will get 2 yeses. Sometimes your no's are really going to outweigh your yeses. I think both Stacey and Sarah are spot on. Like, you have to ask in different ways. You have to go where people already are, and you do have to be careful of your pitch. Just not saying that you're doing this, Jennifer, but just be mindful. If I'm going to a Stacey and I'm like, hey, Stacey, domestic violence and pets is a thing. I have survivors who aren't leaving. Can you give me 10 to 15 kennel spaces to house pets? Stacey's probably going to be a little hesitant to say yes. But if I go to Stacey and I say, hey, Stacey, can we start small? Like, I'd really like to start with 1 pet kennel. And how can I support you? How can I support your organization? I think one of the biggest pieces about collaboration and partnership building is that it is a give and take, y'all. You are absolutely not going to get everything that you want. And you are going to have to give a bit. And so, I do think there's a little bit of, you're going to have to ask over and over again. And you're also going to have to give and know what it is that you need to give, and ask in those different ways, for sure. Yeah.
That's huge, because I think that we're all so busy and overwhelmed, and we assume that nobody else can be as busy and overwhelmed as we are. But like, speaking for my own profession, veterinarians are drowning. Our suicide rate is through the roof. Our mental health is horrific, right? And every vet gets pressured to do stuff for free. Constantly, friends, family, community members. And if you don't want to do stuff for free, people will go online and they'll bash you and give you bad, feedback or whatever. So I think that just knowing that everybody is doing the best that they can, maybe you don't see it, but they are, trying to give everybody the benefit of the doubt. And I love what you said, Katie, about like, maybe you don't start by asking for the moon, or maybe you start by not even asking for anything other than, can I just come meet you and learn about what you're doing? Absolutely. Maybe just invest in the relationship first and don't ask for anything. Just try to learn what they do and get them to know you. And that's your first step, probably before you ask for a thing, is just investing in that relationship.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, I couldn't have said it any better. And also just assume the best intent. I think that's one of the most important things that, that I certainly take with me is I'm just going to assume the best intent of that person or that organization. So I know we are at time. We're actually over time, of course. We're 10 minutes over. I just also want to preface that we have moved this work forward. And I am just so grateful to Stacey, to San Diego Humane Society, to Sarah and Kate and Ruthless Kindness for just, I think, being a part of helping to move this conversation and this work forward. Right now we're at 19.42% of domestic violence shelters are pet friendly in the US. We have a ways to go. There's no doubt. The percentage of like pet housing programs is bigger. we have work to do, but I also just want to presence that we've also come a really long way. And we've come a long way, I think, in understanding that people and pets are connected. And we can't help one without the other. Also, just as just two wonderful people in my life, I so appreciate both of you and what you bring to the world every day and to this movement. And just thank you for the time chatting here with me today. It's always fun.
Back at
Thank
you.
you
Thank you for
for all that
having
you've
us.
done. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe we'll have you back next year. Who knows? And we'll see where things have gone in the last year. Finally, just to everybody else, thank you for spending the last hour and 10 minutes with us. It is going to be recorded. Danielle will get the follow-up email out. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you have questions, you need support. And just thank you for stepping into this work. Thanks, y'all.